Laura Ingraham is going to settle this once and for all.
Laura, help me here.
I bet you're a kale lover.
Okay, Abby is totally right. Okay, let me just say that.
Thank you.
And Pete, you know now all the feminists are going to say that you're a misogynist for your views on kale.
Don't check your Twitter today.
Overgeneralization.
All the feminists are going crazy. But very interesting. What a coincidence. Yesterday, I had lunch with my political editor, John Conradi, and he got a salad. And I said, John, are you going to get kale? He said, no. I got the kale and spinach salad with hazelnuts and blueberries.
I love it.
It was so good. And at the end of the lunch, my daughter, I go home. She's come home from school. She said, Mom, you got some big green stuff in your teeth. So I've been walking around the whole afternoon with green junk sticking out of my teeth. But it tasted good.
Laura Ingraham, she's just like you.
Well played. The kale badge of honor. Laura, let's talk a little bit about another badge of honor. If you are progressive, it seems like you're being encouraged to go to these town halls. And while the mainstream media says, look, these are not organized, we know for a fact that Organizing for Action, Barack Obama's political action group, they've been working with this group, Indivisible. They've got a manual on how to do it. They say, if you go, make sure you take pictures, because unless there are pictures, it didn't really happen, and be really noisy and make a lot of racket.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously happens. I'm sure there are people who go just because they heard about it. I think it's become something of a social club for the embittered left, these town hall events. Some people go and they're just really angry. They're upset that Hillary lost, and they want to make their voices heard. I have no problem with that. I think that's fine. That's part of the democratic process, and they should let the congressman or senator speak, and then they should ask a question. It should actually be a conversation. Right. I think when you watched someone like Senator Grassley or Chaffetz, I think they did a good job, and they did a good job in answering questions. So I don't have any problem with that. But obviously, the left is using this as a way to try to put salve on the wounds of the left-wing activists who are the core of the Democrat Party. But I have a suggestion for a lot of these folks. If they really want to be as effective as the Tea Party, which wasn't centrally organized, much to the chagrin of conservatives, maybe they should start protesting at the town hall events of Democrat senators and congressmen who routinely miss the signals of the middle class in this country that has turned away from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, because that's what the Tea Party did. They, for the most part, were protesting against Republicans' failure to stand up, and then they made their voices heard on substantive issues of Obamacare and overspending. Well,
you're using the words like substance and solutions and all these things. How can you be effective if you don't have any of that to back it up with? We had Kellyanne Conway on the last hour, and she said that is the biggest problem here, is they're not talking about any solutions. Take a listen to what she said.
I just don't hear a lot of solutions. That's what concerns me. Protesting is covered under the First Amendment. That's all fine. But come up with your own solutions. The opposition party is exactly that these days. They bellyache and moan and complain about most things, but I haven't heard any solutions. Donald Trump bad, I'm not Donald Trump. That's not a message. That's a screed. And so if you listen to these folks, some of them are echoing and articulating fears that are unfounded.
Is that the problem? I mean, what is their platform? What do they stand for? That's the big question for Democrats, isn't it?
I think it's about exerting what little power they have. And again, what Republicans had to do, and what they did, frankly, in rejecting the old Bush establishment GOP, is they said, this hasn't worked. No offense to the Bushes, no offense to the old, ways of doing conservative politics and globalization and all these mega trade deals. No offense to that, but it didn't work. We're going to try something else. It's unconventional. It's in some ways not conservative. It's a non-ideological, more pragmatic approach to governance. We're going to try that for a while and see if that works. And I think the Democrats, they don't want to do that. They never want to look in the mirror and have a conversation with themselves about, gosh, maybe Nancy Pelosi wasn't as effective as we thought. Maybe the pushing the social agenda, which really turns off tens of millions of faithful Catholics, other Christians, and frankly even some Muslims around the country. Maybe we should just focus on fixing our economy and giving people a better chance at making a better life for themselves. But they've gone so far left, so far radical, that I think they're actually hurting themselves, not helping themselves at these town halls.
Well, Laura, speaking of Democrats and going left or going going right. It does seem, though, that some level of fiscal conservatism seems to be breaking out amongst Democrats who suddenly they want to, pinch pennies over immigration enforcement, over the
Can we
wall.
afford this?
Can we afford this? What do you make of all these representatives and other spokesmen come out and say it just costs too much, you can't do it?
Yeah, we wrote a piece on LifeSet yesterday about this Congressman Esbiot, who's just one of many. I believe he's from New York, and I think he's from New York. But anyway, he went on and on about the cost of deportations and the border wall, and I love it because you never hear Democrats talking about trying to save money because they believe in spending gobs of money on the things that frankly don't work or throwing more money at the welfare state. And what a lot of us believe is that when you tackle the issue of border enforcement and immigration enforcement, actually give meaning to the sovereignty that we are entrusted with in our country, you'll save money in the long run. Because the Heritage Foundation study on this a couple years ago determined that it was $54.5 billion a year is what we spend on the illegal immigrant welfare and various other federal programs, public schools, health care, that they invariably get when they're here. $54.5 billion. $20 billion leaves the country in remittances every year.
Right.
I'm looking for Republicans to move forward on taxing that. Let's tax the remittances leaving the country, going back to places like Salvador, Honduras, of course, Mexico. But Democrats, where are they on that tax? They like taxes. They should be in favor of taxing
Money they
that.
don't want to touch.
Well, you mentioned that Democratic congressman. We've got a soundbite from him where he reveals on television a number of members of his family are actually in this country, were at one point illegally. Listen to this.
We were here in a visitor's visa, and we overstayed our visitor's visa. And then we eventually were here without any documents and actually had to go back to the Dominican Republic to get our green cards. So we face the predicament that had we not gotten our green cards, we would have been stuck there.
What do you think?
Well, I guess that worked out for him. I always hear that a lot of the illegal immigrants are in the shadows, but the next thing we turn around, they're showing up at protests, town hall meetings. They're graduating from universities. Some are being arrested for MS-13, gang violence. I mean, the whole thing about in the shadows. Let's retire that phrase once and for all. Nobody's in the shadows. Most of the illegal immigrants are working. A lot of them for cash. Others using false documents. So, President Trump is actually doing what most people in the country believe is the right thing. Tackle the criminal aliens first. Make sure our border begins to get enforced as it should be. Try to apply the laws more evenly. That's much less irrational than the policies we've had now. So he's doing what most people want, and the left is going to continue to whine and moan about it. But full steam ahead.
On Monday, Fox and Friends is going to sit down with President Trump. We've asked the viewers to send us in their questions, but I want to know from you, if you could ask him one question, Laura, right now, what would it be?
When is the administration going to start putting real pressure on Republicans in Congress to move forward with a real repeal and replace of Obamacare? This cannot be put off, and we need to have real weight from the White House being applied, pressure being applied from the White House through the congressional liaison. And this has to be seriously done and seriously considered. So that cannot wait till the end of the year. This has to be done, and it has to be done well. We have to bring down the cost of health care. I'd press them on the pharmaceutical companies and everything that's happening with the rise of drugs and big pharma. He said he was going to do something on that, and so far it looks like there's some back off on that. So I'd press him on both things.
I got a feeling we'll do just that. Laura, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to see you guys.
Yeah,
I'm going back to my kale omelet right now.
Well, your teeth are perfect and clear this morning. No kale in there.
Thank you, Abby.
Pete was saying, I can't get this kale taste out of my mouth.
I was gargling coffee in the break.